8 days after a perfect wedding in Montana, a young husband falls off a cliff in one of the most beautiful parks in the United States. But is it really an accident, or the secret plan of his own wife? What can drive a believing, reserved wife to turn a honeymoon into a crime scene? In the harsh heights of Montana, where the sky splits over the ridges and the snow lingers long after spring, one name circulates in the wind: Cody Lee Johnson. The records list him as a mere mortal, born on this soil of the United States, in the state of Montana, son of a land of fir trees and rock. No miracle in the cradle, no prophecy inscribed in his date of birth. But already the horizon tightens around him, as if the mountains, motionless and patient, were waiting for his step. In 2013, Cody is 25. He's a young man, but already rooted, planted in the soil of Kalispell, a small town set between lakes and dark slopes. He lives there, among wide roads and asphalt parking lots, between workshops, housing developments, and the distant outlines of the peaks. His house stands like so many others, simple, modest, but full of laughter, plans, late-night conversations around a kitchen table. He works as a mechanic at Nomad Global Communication Solutions, a local company. Metal knows him. Tools recognize his hand. Under his fingers, cables fall into place. Structures are straightened. Essential systems come to life. He is one of those who repair, who hold together what is about to come apart. Around him, a human circle forms. His parents, solid figures, watch over him without confining him. They see him moving forward in life, with a clear gaze, a confident bearing. Close friends orbit around him, companions of roads and nights, of confidences sometimes exchanged in the shelter of a pickup truck or a quiet living room. These friends will later come to stand at the courtroom bar, swear on their memories, on the tone of his voice, on the light in his eyes a few days before his wedding. They will speak of a man turned toward the future, who does not doubt, who makes plans, who laughs as he talks about his life as a husband. Cody does not walk alone. On Sundays, the same path leads him to a local church. A community surrounds him, made of songs, prayers, handshakes at the entrance, familiar looks. There, he sits, listens, maybe sings, looking in the words read and the murmured psalms for a guiding line. He belongs to that invisible weaving that holds together families, beliefs, promises. In this church, they know him by his first name. They know his face, his smile, his way of encouraging or comforting. His faith is not written in stone, but in gestures, in the time he devotes to this community where he finds structure, warmth, meaning. In the same town, under the same shifting sky, another destiny is taking shape. Jordan Lynne Graham. Court records and the press fix her year of birth, 1989. She is 21 when fate comes to intertwine with Cody's. She also lives in Kalispell. The same streets, the same supermarkets, the same skies set ablaze in the evening above the dark line of the mountains. Just a few kilometers away, sometimes a few minutes, these two lives flow in parallel, still separate, still unaware of the tragedy to come. Jordan does not present herself as a flamboyant figure. The witnesses who will speak of her later describe her as rather reserved. She does not seek center stage. Discreet, devout, she too is deeply rooted in a local church, in that same culture where faith sets the rhythm of the weeks, gives meaning to decisions, frames the most intimate choices. Her personal life, as reported by the press, is organized around small jobs, babysitting, time spent at home. She is not absorbed by a career. She is first of all a daughter, a friend, a believer, a young woman on the threshold of an adult life still blurry. Those close to her who will later testify depict her as diligent, serious in her religious practice, invested in the church. She sings, she gets involved, she obeys. She listens to the teachings repeated each week on purity, fidelity, obedience to God, the sacred value of marriage. These words do not slide off her. They sink in, imprint themselves, trace narrow paths in which she tries to move forward without straying. Before their names are joined on a marriage certificate, Cody and Jordan date for several years. The local and national press mention a long relationship, an extended courtship that began when they were still very young. Several years of meetings, outings, conversations in parking lots, after services, in family living rooms, under the cold light of neon or the half-light of a winter dusk. Together, they grow up. Together, they build an image of the future for themselves. In this relationship, faith is not just a backdrop. It is an axis. In their community, the couple is not fully defined until the religious wedding. Chastity before marriage is a proclaimed, oft-repeated value. Marriage is not just a social ceremony. It is a line one crosses while bearing on one's shoulders the gaze of family, pastor, friends, and God Himself. The pressure is there, diffuse, silent, yet heavy. People expect them to get married, to form a solid home, exemplary, pure. Around them, the small church in Kalispell takes the shape of a sacred theater. A pastor stands there each week, Bible in hand, interpreter of the sacred text, guide for their steps. For the couple, a church wedding is not a secondary option. It is the very heart of their future. The articles from CNN, ABC, and NBC remind us of this. A ceremony in church, with family, friends, and the pastor present, is organized as the natural culmination of these years of dating. Everyone is preparing for it. Everyone projects themselves into it. Prayers rise. So do expectations. But while Cody walks joyfully toward this day, later accounts suggest an underground tension in Jordan. The community values marriage as a spiritual summit. The norms weigh heavily. The idea of chastity before the wedding, often mentioned in these circles, gives marriage the role of the only door to adult life, to intimacy, to full social acceptance. To say no, to renounce, to back out, is to confront not just one man, but an entire world of rules, gazes, judgments. In this silence where the drama is ripening, the young woman finds herself between two abysses, that of breaking up and that of irreversible commitment. On June 29, 2013, the long-awaited day arrives. In Kalispell, a church opens its doors. The pews fill up. Families, friends, and members of the congregation take their seats. Newspapers cite this date as the exact moment when two destinies officially become one. The exact name of the church varies depending on the source, but the setting is clear. A nave, an altar, a pastor waiting for the bride and groom with the Bible and the vows. Witnesses stand ready, bridesmaids lined up, close family in the first rows. The assembly rustles, whispers, falls silent. Cameras lie in wait for every gesture. The photographs from that day, later spread across the media, show fixed smiles, dresses, flowers, eyes turned toward the lens. They will later become haunted images. because everyone knows what comes next. But for now, they are only that, moments snatched from joy. Cody appears radiant, according to witnesses. Friends will say he seemed happy, enthusiastic, almost incredulous to finally have reached this much-hoped-for day. He walks down the aisle like a man ready to build, to give of himself, to protect. Jordan, meanwhile, is at the center of all eyes. Some guests will later testify that they found her distant, nervous, withdrawn. Others will say they noticed nothing, that her usual reserve blends that day with a natural shyness, with emotion. The media relay these perceptions. She smiles, but at times her gaze drifts away. She holds her bouquet, says the expected words, but some witnesses sense a tension. They don't know how to name it. They don't yet know what weight hangs over these vows. The ceremony unfolds. The pastor speaks. He proclaims the union, lets resound the ancient words about love, fidelity, and death as the only thing that should part them. The rings slide onto fingers. Hands clasp. It is declared before God and before men that Cody and Jordan are now husband and wife. Voices rise to bless, applaud, sing. The flash of cameras accompanies every kiss, every family embrace. The legend is being written at the very moment when tragedy begins to tighten, invisible, behind the curtain of smiles. After the ceremony comes the reception. A hall, perhaps adjacent to the church, or a venue reserved in town, opens to the guests. The articles describe a classic wedding: meal, speeches, dancing. Loved ones raise their glasses, tell anecdotes about Cody, about the couple, about how they met, about these years of dating. The music plays, bodies sway, laughter rises to the ceiling. In the photos, Cody hugs his friends, puts his arm around Jordan, greets, thanks. He glows, say those who were there. He talks about the future. He already sees himself building a home, a family. For him, life is beginning. But for Jordan, this beginning may look more like a closure. Several witnesses, in courtroom accounts, will say that she does not seem fully present. Nervous, detached at times, as if a thread were still pulling her backward. As if, while everyone moved toward the dance floor, she stayed on the threshold, anxious. Some notice nothing. Others register, without grasping its significance, a faint sense of unease. The words she spoke at the altar still echo, heavy, definitive. The next day, however, the world does not stop to contemplate this union. Life, indifferent, demands its daily gestures. From June 29th to July 6th, 2013, it is the first week of their marriage. No long, exotic honeymoon. The articles make it clear. The couple stays in the Kalispell area. The honeymoon is reduced to a few outings, a few moments together, in a familiar setting. The mountains, always the same. The streets, always alike. The change is internal, legal, spiritual, but the landscape itself betrays nothing. Cody reconnects with his friends, with his work. He talks about plans, about married life. Those who spend time with him see no sign of rupture, no shadow of separation. On the contrary, they describe an enthusiastic young husband, turned toward the future, eager to fully embrace this new role. His messages, his words, according to witnesses, reveal neither doubt nor any possible escape. He is not preparing to leave. He is not planning to go back. For him, the road is laid out. husband, future father, believer, worker. For Jordan, on the other hand, the smooth surface begins to crack. In those days suspended between the wedding and the tragedy, text messages, confidences slip toward a few close friends. At the trial, these sentences will be read. These words, written in haste, sometimes late at night, sometimes with a pounding heart, will be repeated. She confides her doubts. She says she doesn't feel ready, that she has the impression she made a mistake. She speaks of this marriage as a step she cannot manage to accept. She repeats that she needs to talk to Cody, that she wants to clarify things, that she wants, perhaps, to find an exit door in a world that offers her very few. These messages later will become evidence, exhibits brandished by the prosecution to show her state of mind. But for now, they float in the air like faint signals, cries for help sent to a few close friends. They draw a deep gap between the public image of the happy couple and the inner reality of the young wife. On one side, a self-assured husband who does not suspect the storm. On the other, a woman trapped in a role she doesn't know how to play, crushed by religious, family, social expectations. The days pass. Meals follow one another. The marital bed is shared or refused. Glances perhaps sometimes avoid each other in the little house in Kalispell. Unspoken words pile up. The neighbors hear nothing. The streets remain calm. But at the heart of that first week of marriage, the rope tightens. Something has to give. Finally comes July 7th, 2013. Only 8 days after the wedding. 8 days during which the wedding bands have not had time to wear down. When the wedding photos are still lying around on tables. When the bouquet has not completely wilted. The sun rises over Kalispell like any other summer day. The calendar does not shout a warning. Yet, in the invisible weave of events, this day already bears the mark of tragedy. Cody goes about his business. He sends his last messages, makes his last calls. Friends, colleagues will later recall these contacts. A text, a phone call, a brief conversation. Nothing alarming, nothing that foretells a disappearance. He talks about work, plans, small, ordinary things. No one hears in his voice the slightest note of foreboding. Jordan, that day, is at the marital home in Kalispell. She, too, sends messages. Some, later, will be unearthed in the court files. Exchanges with close friends, questions, elliptical phrases that take on a different meaning once the tragedy is revealed. Perhaps she is still talking about her doubts, her malaise. Perhaps she keeps quiet, letting her thoughts spin in circles in the rooms of the house. At that precise moment, no official document reveals a criminal plan. Nothing in the records describes a coldly laid-out scheme. Later, it will be known that on July 7th, the couple leaves Kalispell to head toward Glacier National Park. But for now, at the heart of this day, before they leave, the last known hours bear only the mark of the ordinary. A house, a young couple, a mountain summer. And in the distance, motionless, gigantic, the park that waits. Up there, in the northwest of Montana, near the Canadian border, stretches Glacier National Park. A kingdom of rock, ice, and forests, under the guardianship of the National Park Service. The federal signs at its entrances are a reminder. This land belongs to everyone, but it is subject to special laws. Here, crimes fall under federal justice. Here, investigations bear the imprint of the government of the United States. The mountains do not know this, but men have drawn these invisible borders. At the heart of this park, a famous road cuts across the slopes. The Going to the Sun Road, a ribbon of asphalt clinging to the side of the cliffs, climbing, turning, opening onto chasms, deep valleys, icy torrents. On the western side of this road lies a particular curve, the Loop. A bend, a turnout, a knot of trails. From there, parts of the terrain drop abruptly into emptiness. Sheer cliffs, slopes of unstable rock, ravines plunging toward McDonald Creek or toward other dark gorges, according to NPS maps cited in the press. A few steps too far, wet ground, a sudden movement, and the body tips into a world of stone and silence. Glacier National Park, with its postcard panoramas, its emerald lakes, its meadows of wildflowers, hides within it this sharp, hostile face. Tourists stop there, take photos, smile in front of the sweep of the mountains. Few imagine that this majestic setting will become the stage for a marital tragedy, that the rock, indifferent, will keep the body of a young husband for a few days before giving it back to men. In this setting, the jurisdiction of the authorities changes its face. A crime committed here falls under federal jurisdiction. The FBI can intervene. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Montana can bring the charges. Death is no longer just a matter for the county sheriff or small-town police. It becomes a case stamped by the government, filed, numbered, passed on to seasoned agents. The mountains, for their part, remain motionless, watching over these procedures as over simple rumors carried on the wind. On this July 7th, Cody and Jordan are about to enter this territory. They ignore, or pretend to ignore, the invisible rules that apply here. For them, it is an outing, a day in the park, a getaway for two, perhaps to talk, to breathe far from the walls of the house, far from the eyes of the church, far from the repeated questions of those close to them. In the car leaving Kalispell and heading toward the peaks, two destinies sit side by side, one confident, the other racked with doubts.